我而家 share PowerPoint 先。
同埋所有同學唔該 mute，因為你一唔 mute 咧，所有聲音就會變咗你係個 speaker screen 啊。
係咪睇到啊？睇到啊！睇唔睇到啲同學啊？我想問，你可以去。你係咪睇緊 YouTube 㗎？嗰個係我就係覺得奇怪，點解冇咗嘅？佢係你試下咩
Angela 係咪到 YouTube 啊？
你去 YouTube 睇下。但係我哋頭先 testing 嘅時候係得嘅喎。係得㗎，係得㗎，係得㗎。OK。係啊。係咪啊？而家 OK？我而家 live。好啊。So，咁我哋係咪可以開始？阿 Yanki，不如你 introduction。咦？阿 Java 話冇嘢，應該係 time lapse 嘅問題，係嘛？
第二可能就係考慮一啲地點上嘅問題啦，環境上嘅問題。拜拜。
做緊。你係咪 unmute 㗎？你可以 unmute 自己㗎。
OK。
同埋可能要 unmute 翻阿 Sarah。
唔係我 mute 佢㗎。
Hello.
Hi. I think we should start, right?
So，但係咪 Sarah 睇唔睇到啊？睇唔睇到 Sarah 個樣 ？OK，咁阿 Yanki 你講一講，跟住介紹 Sarah，可能咁佢先睇到。你話 introduction，跟住我就下一個 slide。
Hi, Sarah. You say hi.
Hello, I'm Sarah Teasley. I'm a historian. I collaborate very frequently with designers. In fact, I usually work in design contexts. And I am coming to you from London, where it is almost as hot as Hong Kong, but not quite.
Thank you, but without the air conditioning.
See, that's the difference. We don't have air conditioning. It's going to be 37 with no air conditioning.
Oh my God. Okay. Cool. So thank you so much, Sarah, for helping us for this Enable talk. So today will be our fourth one. So before we have talked about empathy, and we also talk about our study on Home Sweet Home, and we also have another talk on dementia, which is 2 years ago. So this is more like a following up, and also very happy that you agreed to help us to do a bit of reflection on what have been happening. And also we have a new summer school this year with over 90 students from Hong Kong Design Institutes that joining us. So this is a really important time for them to really think about design and dementia. Okay, so just let me really quickly go through what we have done in Enable Foundation. So we have started project since year 2018 called Dementia Going, which is about working on public awareness of what we can share with the public about dementia. And then we also, which is something we want to talk more today, is about our outgoing, which our Europe trip that last year we brought our finding from Hong Kong to Europe, collaborating with Denmark, and also did a show in Eindhoven. And then what we are doing now, so this is the show we set up in Eindhoven, which is really interesting. We want to talk a bit more later. And then now, currently, what we've been, sorry, we forgot. And also the experience also shared in Hong Kong and brought this DementiaLand back to Hong Kong and working with local housing authorities, looking at new way to understanding dementia. And then finally, what currently now is our Dementia Hong Kong new project, which is a project which is we're shifting the focus and also the collaboration with the service provider, which is working with 10 NGO, like non-profit, non-governmental organization, providing dementia care and support service in Hong Kong. So it's really exciting at the moment. And we also have 90 students this summer to really exploring something we find from our social worker OT partner. Yeah.
Okay, it's fantastic. I have to say, my I love the project. I love how you've been working. You know, I love how Enable Foundation works and the kind of work that Yanki and Ira, you both do, but the way that you're bringing this social care and that you're seeing the importance and the relevance and the necessity of design and how designing and designers can work with social care providers. So the way that you're really knitting design into the fabric of everyday life, right? I mean, that's precisely what we talk about design is needing to do and what the capacity of design to do, right? To improve or empower or enable people to improve their own everyday experience and their own everyday environments. I mean, I'm a social historian, so I study people's everyday interactions with their environments and with other people. And what I study is how people historically have tried to improve their own environments, to improve their own life outcomes, and how they've used design to do that. So I should have said right at the start, it's a real pleasure and an honor for me as someone who, as a historian, thinks about how designers did this in the past, to have these conversations with you about how you're doing it today and how students on the summer school are learning to do this as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. So shall we start with our conversation topics of the day? Yeah, because Sarah has been really nice. She has been drafting a lot of really interesting questions for us, and we will divide them into 3 parts. And also we will invite our Zoom room where we'll have our creative trainers, designers from Hong Kong, and also around 82 students from HKDI, which they are currently having a design research internship in Enable Foundation. And we're really happy that we could have a conversation with that after our sharing of the project, and also we'll have some question to interact with them as well.
Fantastic. So the first question that I've started getting at it a little bit, but you are both, and everyone in Enable Foundation has experience and are extremely experienced at collaborating with people who come from different kinds of practices and have different life experiences. So people with different kinds of knowledges, different kinds of working. And one thing I'm always interested in is how collaboration changes the way that you work as designers. So how does it change your understanding of design? How does it change your understanding of effective working? So how has working with people who care and support people with dementia, how has that changed the ways that you work? I mean, has it changed how you work? And if so, how has it changed? What have you learned from working with the carers and support providers for people with dementia?
Yeah, I think that's something we think and ask ourselves a lot. by actually working with people with dementia is a very broad and big statement. Yeah, we all need to work with them. But I think this actually even very, like, we ensure our thinking that when we went to Denmark last year, which is, this is, you see the pictures, which is a center for demence in Copenhagen, where democratic society is really working there. And so the people with dementia is a very sensitive like group of people, but it's not vulnerable in our thing, or they are poor, they need help, but they're very interesting people. They have their own like a strain that we should learn from them. So I think for us, really, we ensure us about asking, okay, we are designing with people, but who are those people? So that for us, especially the new project, we're very clear that we are not working directly with people with dementia, but actually those around them. So the first dementia going, the last project we did is the carers, which is some of them are older people meeting our young citizens in Hong Kong and thinking about dementia. And then the Dementia Hong Kong, the latest project, we're really focusing on how to bring our designers, our design student to work with the service provider, which is like social worker, professional OT, nurses, and then write on their experience and how we can actually explore, co-investigate how design can co-create a better future together. So rather than this traditional thinking, okay, we are working with people, we really having a definition of who are those people, understanding them before we actually set up the relationship. So
No, that makes,
yeah, you can see here, yeah, this is where we work with the Center for Demence, and what we done, you see all the tools that we designed is actually translating story from people with dementia. So it's the staff told us a lot of story from their experience that people with dementia told us, quotation, and then we designed the toolkits that for them to engaging other citizens to understand people with dementia. And then we actually even bought all this crazy stuff. This is called a tea set, which is a tea and coffee mix, which is a Hong Kong famous drink. But we brought it to Copenhagen city center to get people to taste it. And then everyone just, what is this? But actually it's mimicking the symptoms of people with dementia, that they're losing the language. So they don't know, they taste something, tastes familiar, but they actually can't say the name. So it's really interesting to bring it to young people, to general public to experience it. And then with real people with dementia quotation from the staff, that is really making the whole conversation really like inspiring, and people starting to think a lot about what they can do and contribute to this whole discussion.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so how is all of that, how has that changed the way that you work? I mean, what have you learned for designing from that?
I think that, as I say, I think it's been like bubbling this of like concept of participatory design, and also what is the democratic movement that designer can play. So for example, this is another example we went last year, which is the Open Museum in Aarhus, which is a government funded and run museum. But what interesting is they actually involve citizens to build a 1950 apartment that actually use it for general public education for history, but at the same time is a real living lab, and every single object inside is donated by the citizens. And then they want to contribute to this historical moment, and also to be a training environment for people with dementia, but not only training, but actually a place that they can find themselves safe. That, for example, they're telling us they have to do a lot of tea session with people with dementia, that they in their late 80s, but they actually in that mode that they are only in their early 20s, just married, living in the 1950 house, waiting for their friends to come to a cup of tea. So this is something I think really inspiring for us as a designer. And we went with a lot of Hong Kong social service provider, and everyone was so amazed at how people, not just service provider or designer or professional working on this topic, but everyone working together as a collective contributing to their own city. So this is really I think also we want to show it to you as a historian. This is super amazing. They have professional like design curator, historian, architectural curator, historian, looking at every details of the apartment. But then the funny thing is they say this maybe only exists another 10 years because the generation have passed. So they're going to preparing the 1961, which is for us, which is going to go in soon. So it's an ongoing archiving for the city, but it's really impressive of what you can see, design and artifacts can help in working in this environment.
I mean, that's really exciting because we talk a lot as historians who work in design and in museums. We talk a lot about how as historians are we participating or contributing to, to people now? How are we not just archiving history, but how are we making that meaningful to people today? And the idea that a museum could then be contributing to the well-being of those with dementia and those around them. Participatory design as a sort of field of practice, and some of the challenges that people come up with around how do you actually enable others, right? How do you shift power to other members of the community with designers working as facilitators of others' creativity? And it strikes me that's a really nice example of precisely that point, where actually it's the historians, it's the carers, it's social providers, and it's offering people with dementia a place, but at the same time, the needs of people with dementia or the comfort zones are what's actually driving the history museum, right? So the history museum's priorities are also being shifted by an aging society in a really powerful way. And that also helps me to think about this sort of questions about how do you change your practice? And it strikes me maybe you aren't changing your practice so much because what you do is to try and, we all talk about empathy, but it strikes me that what you're trying to, at an Enable Foundation, it's around how do you understand where people are coming from? What tools do you use to shift your own center or your own priorities to empower theirs to be the driving force of the project, right? So you're not saying, here's what we're going to do, but you're saying, how do you work? What do you need? What are your priorities? And then building the project from there. So that's really, really exciting.
Yeah, I think, it seems that I haven't really answered your question. Yeah, I think from an architectural background and then Ivy as a journalist, and I think for us is really thinking about who we are, what we can contribute. And I think we start with empathy. I think we've been learning from a lot of our mentor that talk about empathy. But I think for us, we even want to push one more step. Is more about immersive. It's about putting ourselves down. So it's not just like putting ourselves into other people's shoes, but become the others, design as the others. So I think this is what we trying to get our students to do. And also when we design something. So you can see this is after we went to Europe, we came back last winter. And then this is what we done for our housing association in Hong Kong, which is we find that design that we make, we have to do a testing and also really happy that they adopt our ideas and being part of the housing future exhibition in a very general public space in Hong Kong, like a shopping mall. And then the whole idea is really about this immersive experience that you're welcome to this Harry Potter, Mary Poppins house that with really weird stuff happening, like that you can't even turn on the lights, the broom is moving by itself. And then this is like, but then when you see it, you're just like, what is this? And then we really encourage people to immerse themselves, go and touch it, go and use it. And then you feel that the symptom is getting into your body. So of course that you request imagination, but I think the whole thing is really about people. This is why we design with the public, because we want people to really empathy with us to the situations that we want to share with them. And so I think it's evolving. I don't think we are changing our practice, but it's constantly asking very critical question of who and why and where. So this is why we want to set up. So Ari and I have been talking about, we want to set up this question for our audience to helping us to find out, what do you think about design and people? So I think historian, or there was a lot of like theory talking about by, with, for, or is. I will always say design as people. So we are also a people. So we hope we can just use it as a little break and also at the same time reflect what Sarah and I have been talking about, and then give us your answer. And in 2 minutes time, we will just show the result, and this will be quite fun to just get people to starting to think about this.
Yeah, and I hope, and we would like to invite the students to try out as well. I wonder, do they hear my voice or I mute?
No, you.
Yeah. So here's the QR code. Please, you can click in, or you can use the digital code. Just let us know you think design is people, or design with people, or design for people, so that we can do a group voting and we can know what's your thoughts. And now I will release the slide and let you guys have a look of our more than 80 students here. So everyone is trying their best, voting and etc. I think a few of our designers are here as well. I couldn't see. Yeah, Edith is here, which is a textile expert who's working with our summer school. And also, let me try to, Michael, who's trained as an architect and landscape architect. Yeah. And also, let me see, and we have designers from product design background, and also we have designers from upcycling and also from graphic design. I want to know if Jackie is here or not. Yeah, but there's too many people. So let me check how does it go with the number. Do I have to refresh that? Oh, okay. So let me share this with you all. So now I think we have more people voted for design for people and with people. Seems like, yeah, let's see if anyone will get a more inventive words for it. Yeah, but it's very interesting and good to know. For us as researchers, we always want to know what people think. It's always a very interesting learning process where everyone could know more about each other. I think that's the way how we want to get things getting more empathy in some way, where we can understand each other. So let me stop.
Yeah, I think you're right. I might jump in. I think, you know, you were, Yanki, you were saying, you know, it's design as people. And I think I sit there as well. And that's because as a social historian, I'm very conscious that I am also a person, and that we are shaping those histories. So, but it's the other thing that we know, you know, as researchers, it's what is everyone else thinking? Because to some extent, it doesn't matter what I think. What matters is, what does everyone else, you know, what are the most important, what are the loudest, what are the most commonly shared perceptions? And then what can we learn from those perceptions in our own practice? So this is a fantastic exercise. And I'm really, really interested in what everybody's putting forward.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe we should put the QR code again, because some people just can't join because, yeah.
Okay, so let me get back to
One
my,
more maybe.
yeah.
They just send me WhatsApp.
Yeah, and someone want to join our Zoom. We have 80 personnel. We have 20 more. Do you think we can share the Zoom? Sunny and her colleague want to join us as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me.
Sure.
Yeah. Just give me a second. Is it an answer? No, no, there's no an answer. To me, I don't think there's always a standard answer. I was actually
it's an ongoing thing. I don't think I mean the ideal for me is design as people, because we are all people, but that is a very idealistic stage. But then, so I think we need to know about what the possibility are and how precise that we want to apply to different situations.
No, exactly. And then to be really clear, I think when you're doing it, which of those stances you're taking. So are you doing design as people, design with people, design by people, so that everyone understands, the position that you're taking at that time.
And maybe it could be more inventive, like design, I don't know, with people.
I want
whatever with people.
round.
I don't know. It should
or people kill design.
I wanted to say people design.
Yeah, something like that. So
because some people just don't care about design. So people don't care about design. It's like
it works maybe. Yeah, we hope to have more this kind of discussion for that.
Okay, imagine like a Friday afternoon in Hong Kong, good weather outside, before the 6 o'clock lockdown, we should all go out to have a drink, but we have talked about design here, which is, I don't know why. Happy Friday, yeah.
Or you could say it's people don't realize why they actually care about design when they think they don't, but that's really long.
People don't care design. Okay. No, I want to. Yes.
Thank you. I think this is a fun thing. So I think this is something we continue asking, because are we going to show our new strap line?
New strap? No. But I want to ask if we have any students want to ask something before we go on to the next one. Can we? I think there's a few, or our creative trainers where you want to ask something, or our.
People can always, you can type questions in chat. That always works really well.
Yeah, but if you want to ask, feel free to unmute and then ask questions. We should welcome you all to jump in whatever way. So if you don't, I will move on to the dementia culture part.
I want to ask.
Oh, iPhone! This student is called iPhone.
Yes.
And I want to ask, actually, I want to ask something. What is design by, I know the design is definition by the human or the people, and how to create a good design for the people is quite good. Yeah, that's what I want to ask.
Can we reframe the question? I'm not so sure. Ari, do you get what iPhone was asking?
How to create a good design, or how to definition a good design?
So what is the definition of good design? This is a Sarah. Do you have a standard?
So I can give you. I mean, I think you've asked the biggest and most important question, right?
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's not even what is design, but what is good design. I would say that design is an intentional action to change the environment, and I would say that good design is a way. See, here is where it becomes very much about sort of subjective individual interpretations. I think mine is probably fairly close to Yanki and Irie, which is to say, although maybe not, but to me, good design would be design that is democratic, in the sense that it is not a designer applying ideas, but it is design that is listening, empathetic, trying to work from the most fundamental needs and fundamental wishes of the people who will be impacted by that design. So it's both about the motivation and the sort of the stance that one takes. So instead of me going in and saying, I'm going to do this, it's a trying to understand how do people function, what makes people comfortable, what is fundamental to people's well-being, and then trying to work from that to create something that does that. So it's both about the stance that you take when you go into designing and the outcome. It's a very abstract definition, but that would be my definition of good design.
I mean, I will agree at some point, but at the same time, there have been a long discussion with some of my sociologist friends, because I think what you describe can be a very good social worker.
Mm-hmm.
So when they design a surface. So for me, I think as a much more critical educator, because I think Sarah is really nice tutor, and when I was teaching more making things. I think there was something I always say, we're looking for good designer, which is you need to be very confident in something, for example, materials, form, which is, I think is the design language that we own as a discipline. Otherwise we're losing, but then at the same time, you need to really care about the society, which I think this need to be balanced. Otherwise we were just sitting there and just be a nice designer, but not a good designer, that we're leading the design intervention.
Yeah.
But then I think what Sarah described is the purpose of the design.
Although I'd agree with you, because I'd also say it needs to be economical. It needs to use resources well. It needs to work, it needs to not waste resources. It needs to be well made, whatever it is, and it needs to fit the brief.
Yeah.
And it needs to, it needs to work economically with the resources available in that situation, which I think is getting closer to what Yanki's saying.
But I think it will be also like, for them, this is their first year studying design. This may be, oh my God, what should I do? Everything. I can't do everything. But I mean, that's what I would keep saying, is to be a good designer. Just like I really don't believe that we have a long discussion at the RCA, is that they never should be an inclusive designer or participatory designer or social designer. We just need a good designer, but with social conscious, that you need to aware of the society and aware of what you design is making an impact to the world and affecting people's lives. So I think it's a responsibility as a professional.
Yeah, and there's a criticality that comes with it. Is this clip going to fall off when I use it? Is it going to, so there's a sort of engineering side of it as well, about functionality and being critical towards yourself, right? And iterating. So is this the best that it could be, within the time constraints that you have and within the budget constraints that you have?
Yeah.
Ooh, a lot of things to think about iPhone.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the question, and probably our next project and also our topic about dementia culture, we can give you some case that we have done where we really collaborate with one really good designer, where he gave us a spectrum of amazing enabled jackets for dementia. Yeah, I remember. I wouldn't say that it's for dementia. Yeah, we have to prepare.
Yeah, it's for
dementia. Very careful about that. So let's try that and see what you think about it. Yeah. So Sarah, you asked us something about the dementia culture. So
yes.
Can you tell us more? What do you think? Why do you want to ask us about that question when you see our project, especially this one that we displayed at the Dutch Design Week, where we call it OK Dementia Enabled Jacket?
Okay, so there's sort of two things here. One is I'm really interested in the objects and the experiences of people when they interact with those objects. And I'd love to come back, actually, if we have time, we could come back to these objects as examples of good design, if you think they're good design. I think you do. So what about them? They could be a good example to talk about, why is this effective design? Why is this good design? But with culture, so I'm really interested in when we were talking earlier, one of the conversations that we've had in the past, you talked about dementia as a culture. And you were asking how we can all learn from people with dementia. And for me, as a historian, this makes sense, because the past time, the 19th century in many ways was a different culture to ours. If we could go and visit the 19th century, we would all be foreigners, even if it's our home city, right? And actions that make everyone comfortable, and from the different behaviors that people with dementia that they have. And in education right now in Britain and in so many other places, and I know in Hong Kong as well, there's a big move around decolonizing education and decolonizing design, right? So not saying I'm going to design and teach based on my cultural values, but saying as a group, how do we start out by deciding what the cultural values should be? And sometimes, for a lot of educators in Britain right now, that means needing to let go of your own cultural values and listen to those of others, and try and not necessarily put yourself in their shoes, but appreciate what it is. And so when you talked about dementia as a culture, this really resonated with me, right? So it's not about including people, it's about saying, let's learn from you. So how would you describe dementia culture, if there is such a thing? And what can we learn from cultures of dementia? And I don't just mean people with dementia, right? I mean how you've described carers, support workers, NGOs, this sort of larger group of people who comprise dementia culture. How can we learn from that? What can we learn from that?
So this is a really good way for us to rethink about we try to reference a cultural model when we were planning all these projects, because at the moment, especially in Hong Kong, for dementia service, there's always about the medical model where it approached from a very medical side, and also social model where service providers, they're all doing amazing things about like training people with dementia, giving them care services and things like that. And as designers, we always thought what we can do. Should we design a GPS for them? Should we design another super object for them, or another super pill or something? But we're designer trained to try to understand what they feel, because dementia is not just a disease for older person. It will happen on any body or anyone. So when it happens, we have to cope with it. We have to understand the person, who or she is, and also what kind of ability that they are losing, and then they will find new ways to cope with it. So we found that this is something, designers could try to, at least try to make people probably understand what they feel. And also secondly, can we include them into the community? So maybe I will try to explain a bit with our jackets, and then I would further explain more what we think about that concept, because it relates to your question. For us, we are trying to give a sort of like a metaphor of like having a parallel universe. So this is a range of jackets that we collaborate with Pascal Anson, an artist and designer based in London. He's our CDD, right? CDO, right? CDO, too many short terms, I'm sorry. So when we tell him about our research with Hong Kong citizens, where we collect a lot of stories from the carers, from the social workers, we know that there were a lot of coping methods. For example, there are 5 jackets. The first one you will see is an everyday jacket where designers, we don't do anything. It will be on itself. He or she will just do it with their own. The second one is, we call it the Dorami Jacket. It's inspired from stories when people are starting to lose the ability to maybe follow instructions or something, but they can still remember the tunes in their head, maybe probably a song that they enjoy or something. So following the Dorami could help them to button up a jacket, because wearing a jacket sounds like very, very easy, but it's actually quite challenging for people with dementia. The third one, we call it the empathy jacket. It had three arms and three armholes and different ways of jacket armholes where you don't know where you should put in, and also something makes it really difficult to wear that jacket. It was sort of like mimicking the everyday difficulty that people with dementia experience. So when we show this to people who are younger or who are carer, it's easier for them to understand what he or she, his grandpa or grandma is facing every day. And the fourth one, the one with the diagram, this one, it's actually called a diagram jacket, where some of them may be losing the ability to read or follow instruction, but they were able to get the visual cues. And also people easily go wandering, so it would help like someone by the street to help them to look for, to send them home with an address in their pocket. The last one is which we want to advocate. It's called the Everyday Dementia Jacket. So what if the jacket, you don't need to worried about how to wear, or you don't need to worry about which is right or left. It could be more inclusive, and also you can wear it in all kinds of ways that you want. So for us, if we approach dementia from a cultural perspective, first, we could understand them. Secondly, we could probably make something that everyone could embrace and everyone can adopt. And what do you mean by a good design? For us, we really hope that something that embrace diversity, culture, and also we could include people with different ages or different disability or different interests. They could all enjoy the jacket. I think that would be something what we hope in the future it could happen. Yeah.
And it's also, yeah, I mean, something impressive for people. It's not just on the high street, but I think with a lot of engineers and a lot of thinking behind, and make a very simple jacket like this. I think hopefully when people actually try it on, they really feel the design, because it's look like a normal jacket, but it's so much design detail. Also the languages put in that is something ingenious. So I think there was a lot of comment, people like, oh my God, looks so simple, but it's just the minute they wear any of the jacket, they starting to feel the power of design. Something have been designed well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, that is a fantastic illustration. And I think, again, for me as a historian, when we write, for example, we're trying to make it look easy, but exactly and precisely convey a particular experience. And it strikes me that it seems to be with Pascal and you in this instance, what kind of experience are you conveying, and how do you design the object so that when people interact with it, when your body is inside that jacket, when you look at it, when you touch it, how do you have that experience? So yeah, good design then would be that how do you create that experience through the interaction with the object, and how carefully and closely do you calibrate it to do that?
Yeah, and I think most importantly, it's sort of like a conversation piece. A lot of them, they ask me, can I have it in other fabric? Can I have it in another color? Can I have it in this way and that way? Oh, I don't like this or whatever. For me, it's great that you can customize this, or you can, do whatever things with your own need or whatever. I think that is one way that we want to embrace as well, because everyone is different. So probably one solution doesn't fit all, but we could open up and discuss and customize and etc.
Yeah. So I think that's another thing about good design, isn't it? Is that prompting of questions and reflection, and Yanki, what you were calling criticality or critical.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's why you need to be in design school, everyone who's studying.
Yeah.
So shall we move on to my last question?
Yeah.
Okay. So I really wanted to talk about Hong Kong. And that's because super aging societies are found all over the world now, right? So especially here in Western Europe and in East Asia. And you've taken the project, you've been working in Denmark, you're working in Hong Kong. And I want to know, so dementia is a worldwide phenomenon, but are there aspects of the project, right? So interactions you've had with people as part of it, especially, and the objects, what's particularly Hong Kong? Is there something that's particularly Hong Kong?
Okay. First of all, we're from Hong Kong. So I think this is something, as I say, as a responsibility as a citizens, we want to contribute to our hometown. But I think as an architect or researcher, I think Hong Kong is, I want to see a much more objective perspective from just love or having bias because I'm from Hong Kong. But I think Hong Kong is historically a lot of architect or urban designer came here because the actual situation and condition is such interesting man-made like conditions, which is I think will be similar to Tokyo. But I think Hong Kong is even, maybe now is even packed than Tokyo. So Hong Kong is the higher density like city in the world, and with Chinese culture and then colonial history. So it's just an interesting place to see something happen. I think it's for us. I think I've been working, I came back like almost like 10 years, no, less than 10 years, but working in London, come back to Hong Kong. I think have been so many experience that people coming to Hong Kong and using Hong Kong, designer using Hong Kong as a laboratory to test new ideas. So we thought we should do it ourselves because we can't just let other people coming here to mess up our city, but rather why we do it. And also a lot, we have a very poor society. We're super wealthy. I think our finance is very, very healthy, but then we also have over 20% of people living under poverty line. So it's sad one way, but I think as a researcher, especially, this is a really interesting urban situation that we can use and inspire. And so this is why we need to do, I think what we want to do is we want to do homegrown social innovation from a very unique city from Hong Kong. And then we are so confident that we can share with the others, because what happening in Hong Kong can be happening maybe 20 years time in Colombia or in Milan, which is we've been seeing friends like, yeah, you guys doing something strange that we're not happening there, but you will see this is what happening in a lot of big city, possibly later in Hong Kong.
Yeah, no, so as a historian, I'm always really interested in, I always assume that the stories I'm telling will be specific to the place, right? And to the culture, right? To that time and place and to those communities. And so so a lot of my research is about workshops and making, so sort of technicians and machinists, but I'd never say that what I learn from the knowledge that I receive from a local workshop somewhere in Japan, I'd never say I can then take that to the other side of the world, right? We have big arguments in history about this, actually. And I've just had an argument with a colleague in Paris, actually, just yesterday on this point. A friendly argument, right? So it's this question of, in history, people are very skeptical about taking learning somewhere else. But in design, so the other half of me sits in design, and in design, we say, well, of course we can share knowledge, of course we can learn. So I'm really interested, what kind of learning do you think will be translatable? So when you've taken the project to Denmark, for example, in Copenhagen and Aarhus, what kinds of things translated? You've already talked about, the sort of the tea, coffee, and people finding it different. But what are the translatable parts?
I think as a researcher, I would say the methodologies, but I think maybe make it easier to understand is the unfolding process. So, for example, I think the Copenhagen one, I think we also have struggled a lot with the Copenhagen project because they saw what we done in Hong Kong, and the brief is like, okay, let's do a Denmark version. And then that was like, what is a Denmark version? And then we go back to our project and we're starting to unfold what we have done, what methods, what methodologies. And then we need to talk to the staff in Copenhagen, and then they told us the similar thing. So we unfold that we have a story from Hong Kong. We also have like the service provider sharing us with the service model. And then we did the this stuff like magicalize like objects that are understandable for Hong Kong people. And how can we take this process to go to Denmark? So we need to talk the same thing. So there was a lot of struggle, but then also in the nitty-gritty, there was a lot of cultural misunderstanding. For example, they think we are sometimes too pragmatic, and then they don't get it. For example, they keep coming back. They need everyday objects rather than magical object. And then when we show it, this is not magical in Hong Kong, but no, this is really magical in Denmark. So but for us, I think I get what you mean in historical term, but I think in design, if you treat it like a methodologist, it's transferable.
Yeah. So that was the argument that I made yesterday that got me in trouble, I should say. But I agree with you, right? And the methodology is a starting point to prompt the work.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But yeah. It's not easy to understand because the outcome sometimes look very different.
Yeah.
But then I think for us, it's the transferable or the transformation process that we see there was a similarity, but a lot of people don't. So I think that was also a trust. So for example, when we went to Denmark, I think the other good thing about Hong Kong is we have a very good funder. They are very supportive, and I think the Social Innovation Fund in Hong Kong is very forward-looking. So they believe in us. So they enable us to make some of our ideas like materialize it and physical. And I think that showed when we showed that to Denmark, and they were just like, we need something like this, but we don't know what it look like. But I mean, for them, there was something we was quite surprised because we thought then they're much more like imaginative, much more cultural. But then they also got the ideas that we developed from Hong Kong data. So, and I think that was a good bridge that they say, we need something like this for Denmark. Yeah.
And probably, this is the next one will be the last slide of today. But I think this is something that we are doing right now, and all our designers and students are all working their heads and toes and everything into it. But I think it explained a bit why Hong Kong, because currently we are working with 10 NGOs, and every one of them we're approaching in different angles of methodology, because they were situating in different districts. Their size and their surface are different in their own way with their own characters. So our students, they're all split into different teams now and looking into these currently objects that was used in their cognitive training lesson, in their maybe for physical training thing, or inside that sometimes they use a lot of games, or they use a lot of different kind of ways. And we found that they're really, really creative. One of them told us just with one apple, she's able to interpret it in 15 ways of how to use an apple to train an elder group about cognitive training. They can use it for counting, for taste, for smell, for understanding, for sharing, and also for social training. For us, that is something really interesting how they do that. And also what you mentioned before about the purpose. For us, now we're doing something we call design research. We go there, we go do observation, we go see what they do and how they do with the things. And designers will try to unfold them to see what they really, really want, or their wishes in the future. So now we are trying to unfold all these kind of little wishes or their motivation or something inside behind all their practice that they were doing it every day with the elder. And we hope we'll get something interesting around December, hopefully.
Well, I look forward immensely to finding out the results, I have to say.
Yeah, so maybe we can go to the Q&A section, because I think maybe quite a lot of people will have questions about the project, or even if you have questions for Sarah, we are very happy as well. Someone sitting next to me are very anxious. She want to ask something, right? She told me she had a question she want to ask. Yeah. Yeah. Do you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Sarah.
Oh my God. I think you should just yeah, you should just. This is our intern, Sophie. She's a super nice and super helpful.
Hi. You mentioned about mobilizing the past in the beginning. Oh my god.
Oh my God. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think it's this one.
My. Yeah,
Is it better?
Yes, you go.
So I want to ask, like, maybe for a design historian, how do you like apply design history in like contemporary situation, and how do you apply history theory into your own design process?
Okay. So I'll say what I do is, I was actually just, if I was drawing it for myself. What I do is, I guess I use, in a way, sort of ways of thinking like a historian, and I don't want to say history thinking, because I don't want to go into design thinking. But what I do as a historian is think about and a design historian is think about how did people's interactions with artifacts, with the environment, how did that shape history, right? So not just what did people do to each other, but how did the designed environment play a role in history? And so that's really abstract, but as a historian, then often what I do is I collaborate with designers, and I train my students to collaborate as historians with designers. So to be in a design process, in a collaborative process, researching like a historian, asking questions like a historian. So really good examples, why? And just, like a small child saying, why? And not accepting one answer. So saying, well, there might be 5 reasons why. Are we sure we have all those reasons? So it's a bit like the apple. There's not just one thing you can do with an apple, there are 15 things. So as a historian, I'm trained to always say, what are the other reasons? And what else can we do? So that's one example of the kind of thing that as a historian in a design context, I bring to the process. Going the other way, so many of the ways of working in design research, so iterating, prototyping, collaborative work, creativity, that what Yanki and I were talking about is good design. I think there's a lot that historians can learn from how designers work. So the other half of what I do is trying to share that with historians. So saying, if we're writing about the history of, the history of sawmills, or the history of shopping, or whatever it is, how can thinking like a designer, how can working like a designer help us to write better history, or good history, which is similar to good design? So it's kind of Yanki's point about methods, except that instead of taking methods between Copenhagen and Hong Kong, I'm taking methods between history and design and sort of trying to go backwards and forwards. But yeah, but a lot of it's about questioning and being super critical, and never never accepting things as they are. Being like, are you sure? Are you sure? Is that really why? That kind of thing.
But I think this is what I think we talk a lot about what if, and maybe sometimes talk about why not, because why not may be a bit too aggressive sometimes. But we've been having this maybe the last month meeting all our social service provider. I think I don't know, the student just starting this week, but we've been having the last month running a lot of workshop with social workers, and I think we were just non-stop asking so much question. So the last slide I will show is actually some of the haha moment that we got. This is called the reality training board or something. So they've been telling us they've been designing tools to help people with dementia to find the reality. So the date, the weather. And so we always have this dream that, oh, they should be really looking really interesting, or not just nice, but interesting. And then we find out this is like what they mean by this reality board that they just designed about AM, PM, and night. And we just like, we can do something more interesting and helping the whole process. So it's not about they're not creative, but it's just like this is what their skill for. But but if they use this, we imagine they use it really well, because they were very like facilitating really well as a social worker, use it to run different, like I would say, this can be used by maybe 20 different way of feeding the people with dementia into this reality world. But it's just like, I think for us is something the cross-disciplinary or even the transdisciplinary can be bringing to the whole thinking. And yeah, we just non-stop unfolding everything.
I think the other thing that historians bring to that is the past as a comparison. So I might say a lot of my research looks at sort of about 100 years ago. And I'm always, so if I'm talking with designers now, or part of a project, and say, well, look, something really similar happened 100 years ago. Here were the constraints, here's what they did. And it's not, oh, let's do that, but it's let's use that as a prompt for asking questions.
Yeah. So can we take some more questions, because we have a little bit more time from our students, or we got some guests today. Our friend Sunny is here with her colleague, and also just want to see anyone want to ask a bit more questions before we closing up. Just speak up when you want to.
Or something you want to express, don't need to be a question. So
Yeah, or something.
What do you think? Maybe something you hear about this, and then you have a haha moment, want to share it?
Hello. I'm Edith. I'm one of the trainers, and the centers we are working with, like the Shatin Center I'm working with, they send us like a 1 hour Zoom meeting with the carers and the person with dementia. And suddenly I thought, perhaps very much in Hong Kong, because like my parents came from China. So what they remembered in China, it's gone, right? That China is no longer there. And in Hong Kong, we developed so fast that most of where we lived before as a child is gone. So many things, that's why I think all the NGOs are trying so hard to be their own history museum, to collect things that would inspire them. And in fact, I also work with museums, and it's a wonderful idea that I think it's a new idea for these galleries and institutes to, instead of just having those stage in the museum, it could be a very active sort of education for everybody. And of course, for our students, when we started the group, how many was it? Most of the students have never lived with the elderly, right? And for some 20 years old to think about what's old is really interesting. I think 30-year-old is very old. So this whole whole, I think, process of getting to know these persons with dementia, their background. For example, we said some of them are illiterate, right? But we also have very highly educated person with dementia. So it's just, in a way, a wonderful experience to learn all about your own community. You never knew there's these people here. And why do you care? Because you'll be one of them soon.
One of the most powerful moments I've ever had as a historian, and one of my aha moments, was when I started doing oral history, or even just interviews with people in their 90s. And it's that humbling, and I was in my 20s, and your jaw just drops. And then you get a sense of what's possible and how small you are, but also how much you can learn. And I think so that I guess what I'm saying is, this project strikes me as so exciting for all the students involved, precisely for the reason that you've just given.
Any more question you might want to ask? For example, as you guys are going into looking for the dementia things or etc., you can ask us or Sarah about what you're gonna do. Even now we are in a lockdown situation, we might not able to do face-to-face interview, but maybe in the coming next week, you'll be meeting with our social service workers. So you'll be able to talk to them and ask them things, etc.
And I guess, I was talking about talking with older people, because if you're in your 20s, someone in their 90s, it's a different world, and their experiences make you question what you took for granted. What they take for granted can be so different. But I think in a different way, it's that moment of going into those going into talking with the workers in the NGOs, all of the really experienced professionals in the NGOs, again with that, what can I learn? What is your culture? Where are you coming from? What do I not understand? What am I missing? Right? It's kind of like, why not? But I was looking at some of my archival material. So I was looking at some of my research resources yesterday, and I read it. I thought, I completely missed these things the first 5 times I looked at it, because I didn't know to ask, and I didn't recognize it, because it was such a foreign, it was from 1910, and it was such a different world to me that I didn't see it. So I had a moment of feeling really humble and thinking, how can I understand what this is trying to tell me? And I think that's where the tools that probably are being taught in the summer school, the kinds of things that Yanki and Irie that you do come in so usefully. So there's something to learn, that moment of, what do I not understand? And just asking that, what am I missing? What am I missing? What am I missing? And maybe you're not, but you don't know unless you ask.
So if there's no further questions, maybe we can wrap it up. And also we will keep posted with Sarah, but probably she will be very curious about what we're gonna do in coming months. Yeah, so last but not least, thank you everyone for joining us today. We made it, and also we will be having officially the first live YouTube that we ever had. So yeah, thank you, Roy. You always really supporting for us. Yeah. So I hope we'll see you soon or on Monday. And your lovely task 1 to 6. We are looking forward to them. And also we hope you all have a good weekend, and we hope we will stay connected while we are still having a very safe social distancing. So thank you very much. Have a nice
thank you again for Sarah. It's such a good having not just today, but having continuous conversation, and hopefully, like Irie say, we should update you. And so you're going to move soon?
I am in the process of moving to Australia, but
you go like you pass Hong Kong, right?
Your flight will pass Hong Kong.
Yeah. Well, I hope to be, when we can all travel again, when we're not all locked down again, I hope to be in Hong Kong a lot more once I get to Australia. So
cool.
Yeah, I will wave from the airplane.
Yeah. But before that, everyone stay safe and have a good weekend. And yeah, we'll be in touch. So everyone do their homework, please.
Sorry. And tomorrow we'll have some Zoom. I know some group will be. So thank you very much. We will be able to do it. Okay. So see you.
Goodbye.
Bye. So how should I stop my live?